Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America, and welcome to Food for Thought, Thinking with Jesus. This is an exercise of a daily meditation in what it means to actually think with Jesus. It's based on the idea, the truth, that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And the other truth that we found in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 that says we have the mind of Christ. So we can think with Jesus. And our subject for today is loved and loving. Loved and loving. I'm going to read a devotional that I wrote years ago where I was trying to sort out this idea of that we are loved by God in order to love. And this was my best attempt at trying to filter this out in my mind and think with Jesus. So I'll read the devotion for September 1st, 2020. What are the chances you will be perfectly loved today? Good? Impossible? 100%? If Jesus lives in you right now, then your chances of being loved perfectly are 100%. The same way Jesus was loved continuously and perfectly by the Father, Jesus invites you to abide in his continuous and perfect love each day. Jesus said, "As the Father loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love," John 15:9. Never expect to be loved perfectly by the people in your world. Never doubt that Jesus is loving you perfectly 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Abide in the perfect love of Jesus, and he will perfect the quality of your love and love the world through you. These words are easy to write, difficult to understand, and maybe even more difficult to follow through on and to live. So let's be honest about them. And I want to ask a question. Would you sign on to be treated like Jesus was treated here in this world? Would you sign on? Is that what it means to be loved by God? If you think about Jesus' experience here in the world, and if you go back all the way to his birth and having to be flee to Egypt and then brought back, and if you really take an honest look at the life of Jesus and you said to yourself, boy, I'd want to sign on for that, would you? What if what we're seeing in Jesus is the most meaningful way to live? What if the way to live a meaningful life is not circumstantial, but it is actually a state in which we're being loved in order to love? Now, if you look at Jesus' life through this lens, he was being loved by his Father in order to love us. And how meaningful did that make Jesus' life? How important did that make Jesus' life? Well, from my point of view, having been forgiven by Jesus, because he chose to be loved by the Father enough so that he could die for me on the cross, then I would say there was never lived a more meaningful life than the life of Jesus. So we come across something that we may not like, but it appears to be, is taught by Jesus, that we only find meaning when it comes to being truly what a human being is meant to be, when we are simultaneously being loved and loving. And there is no way to get to meaning without combining these two things. We need to be loved and we need to love. They go together. Now, let me ask another question so that we can think together. Would you sign on to be loved in order to keep love alive in this world? Would you sign on to be loved in order to keep love alive in this world? Let's imagine that love was at death's door in this world. And word came that there was only one thing that could keep love alive in this world, and that would be for people to become filled with love from God and go in the direction of where love is at death's door. Well, that's what it means to carry our cross. To carry our cross means that we sign on to go in the direction of the pain that is caused by the absence of love. Cross-bearing is a responsibility given to us as those who are being loved to deliver love where love is not arriving and is not available and not accessible. A certain quantity of divine love needs to get in this world in order for this love to be sustained among us. And who sustains love? Only God. Only pure love can sustain love. And who is it that was given the authority to keep love alive in this world? That's Jesus. And he has called me and you to sign on as disciples to be loved and to love. Now, in the biological realm, we understand that human biological life is sustained from generation to generation. A generation, if you look it up somewhere and try to figure out what is a generation, there are a lot of different numbers that are thrown around, but most say that it's between 30 and 40 years is a generation. For example, my father was born in 1911, and he lived until 1961. And he lived 50 or between 50 and 51 years of life in this world. And so from 1911 until 1961, that's my father's generation. And the generation was the period of his life when he could have children and raise children, and then he would have provided for the next generation of biological existence, let's say. Now, from the time that my father was born in 1911 until now, that's 110 years. So I can visualize very simply and very beautifully 110 years generationally. I can visualize my father, I can visualize his brothers and sisters, I can visualize his life and my childhood, I can visualize all the way up to that's 110 years. That's a pretty good view of some reality. Now, if I look at my sons and my daughters and my 11 grandchildren, I can look out into the future another 100 years. And if I go back to my father, and I met my grandfather when I was a small child, and he goes all the way back into the 19th century, and I can see back that far, and I can see back far if I think about it enough generationally, so that I'm already getting to around 200 years. Now, when we think about the existence of love, when we think about the existence and the maintenance of love in this world, we can go all the way back to the book of Genesis, and we can see that Adam and Eve were supposed to be the ones who received love and maintained love in this world. That was to be the image of God. They were to be the visible representation of continuous love in this world, Adam and Eve. They lost the Garden of Eden because they wanted to be in charge of their life rather than be the evidence of love as their life. So when you get to chapter 4 in the Bible, the world is in chaos. Cain kills Abel, and then it goes all the way to the flood. And we see God very aggressively taking action in the world. But what was he doing? He was maintaining love alive in the world. Everything that you think God did in the Old Testament that was crazy and cruel was not crazy and cruel. It was needed to keep love alive among human beings. Now, what you see God doing in the New Testament when Jesus is crucified is he is solving the problem of maintaining love in this world, because Jesus is going to make it possible so that he can live inside of disciples. And so love becomes generational in a disciple's life. This is really an interesting thought. The only way love can be maintained in this world is by Jesus' presence. And Jesus is present in me, and Jesus is present in you. And so he wants you to be loved, to love your generation. He wants you to be loved. That's what he means by abide in my love, as he was abiding in. The whole idea of Jesus abiding in you and abiding in me and us abiding in Christ is so that love is visible and available permanently in this world. That can only be done through Jesus Christ. There is no other way, there is no other truth that can take us back to the Father, which is the source of love. So it's loved and loving. Loved and loving. Now, I want to encourage you to think through in your own day to day, If you would sign on, if love in our world was at risk. You know, today we have people around the world that are concerned about a lot of different things, global warming, they're concerned about societal issues, they're concerned about injustices, and people are mobilized and people want to get involved. People want to do something to help. Most people, good people, want to help. Well, as a disciple of Jesus, I am to carry my cross. I am to be involved, and I am to love my generation. Now, when you think about doing this in a practical sense, you have to let God direct you to the path that fits you. It's a generational path. It's a generational circumstance. I am now in the last phases of my participation in this world as a deliverer of God's love. I think I still have lots to do and I think I can still live a very, very meaningful life. But my generation is passing. But yours, if you're younger, you have a responsibility to go in the direction of pain and deliver the love of God. And for this to work, you have to be loved. So back to the first question. What are your chances? What are the chances you will be perfectly loved today? If you abide in Christ, the chances are 100%. Why are you being loved? To love. The only way for us to find the true meaning of what it means to be a human being is to be loved and to love. It is the pattern of Jesus' life. He was abiding in the love of his Father, and he said everything he said or did came from the fact that he was abiding in the love of the Father. So, let God love you. But understand this about God loving you. It has very little to do with comfort. It has very little to do with things getting easy. It has everything to do with meaning. And people who live with meaning can live anywhere on this planet. And people who live abiding in the love of God expressed through Jesus can bear fruit in any environment in this world. Now, God will show you a path. He will show me a path. And you know, when I get to the end of my journey and I'm finally laid to rest somewhere here in this world, if the custom is at that time that there be something written on my tombstone about my life, if it could be written, he was loved and he loved, that would be enough. That's meaningful. That's what we sign on for when we say we want to be loved by God. We sign on to love. That is the meaning of discipleship. Loved to love. Sign on and love your generation. God bless you. Have a great day.